The day began the way every day did at John Corporation, with the sound of someone yelling, "Who took my coffee?" from the pantry and the printer coughing up paper like it had asthma. As the executive secretary of the CEO, or as everyone else liked to call you, the human fire extinguisher of the company, you stood in the middle of the madness, clutching a folder thicker than your patience. Your boss, John Jungkook, was the definition of cold and controlled. His voice was always calm, his shirts perfectly ironed, and his standards so high they could orbit the moon. He could look at a report for zero point 0.3 seconds and find 17 flaws without blinking. Naturally, the office rarely met those standards. Today's chaos, the intern accidentally booked two caterers for the same client meeting, marketing sent a campaign email to the wrong mailing list, which included the CEO of a rival company, and someone had turned the thermostat at 28 degrees Celsius in August. Miss Secretary, Jimin from HR ran toward you holding a USB stick like it was a cursed object. This has the presentation slides. They're not the right slides, but they are slides. Just give them to him. You stare at him as if you couldn't believe he was serious. Jimin, this feels like handing someone a live grenade. Exactly. And I know you'll handle it, please, and good luck. At 9:55 a.m., you knocked on the glass door of the executive meeting room. Jungkook was already inside, flipping through documents like he was silently judging humanity. Without looking up, he said, 5 minutes late. I was collecting the slides. You replied, walking in. Also, I may have prevented a caffeine induced murder in the pantry. I think that deserves a raise. One of his perfectly arched brows lifted, though his eyes stayed on the page. You think everything deserves a raise? Not everything. You said, sliding into the chair next to him, the seat you mentally called the secretary's chair of doom. Only heroic acts like keeping you alive and preventing this office from collapsing in flames. He finally glanced at you, expression unreadable. My survival is in my own hands. Oh, really? You leaned a little closer. So, if I just disappear for a week, you would be totally fine? No missed meetings, no unanswered calls, no chaos? His pen stilled for a fraction of a second before moving again. The work would still get done. You grinned, but would you get coffee exactly the way you like it? There was the faintest twitch at the corner of his mouth, so faint most people would miss it, but you had been working with him long enough to catch it. I don't drink coffee for pleasure, he said flatly. It's a necessity. You tilted your head, pretending to study him. Wow, I think that's the most romantic thing you have ever said about coffee. His gaze cut to you, sharp, warning, but not unkind. We are in a meeting room, not a comedy club. Oh, come on, you enjoy my jokes. I tolerate them. Which is your version of enjoyment? You shot back. This time there was no twitch of the lips, but you noticed his shoulders relaxed just slightly, the tiniest tell that he wasn't as immune as he liked to pretend. He set the papers down and gestured to the USB in your hand. If those slides are wrong, you'll redo them, all of them, today. Your eyes widened, already starting my day with threats. You sighed dramatically, plugging in the USB. You really know how to keep morale up. I keep productivity up, he corrected. You smirked at the screen as the files loaded. One day, Mr. John Jungkook, you are going to admit that I make your job easier and more fun. Fun is not part of the job description. But you like it, you murmured just low enough for only him to hear. His pen tapped the table once, slow and deliberate. Miss Kim Wyan, focus on work. And just like that, the moment was over. But you didn't miss the way his eyes lingered on you a second too long before returning to the documents. Soon, the conference room was filled with the John Corporation's brightest minds, or as you sometimes call them in your head, the Avengers of Artificial Intelligence, minus the matching suits and teamwork. Your company specialized in AI based solutions for businesses, from chatbot assistants to predictive analytics tools. Today's meeting was about the upcoming launch of the company's most ambitious project yet, an AI powered personal productivity assistant, codenamed Aura. Jungkook sat at the head of the table in his usual crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled neatly to the elbows, posture as perfect as the lines of code the engineers worshipped. You sat to his right, laptop open, fingers ready to type every word. The meeting started smoothly. Namjoon, the lead engineer, was explaining. Aura's new adaptive learning algorithm can now anticipate schedulings, conflicts, and suggest alternatives automatically. We have also integrated natural speech recognition with over 94% accuracy. That's good, but I want 98% accuracy by the final rollout. Yoongi from the data science cleared his throat. We are also training the model to detect emotional cues in voice patterns. So if a user sounds stressed, Aura can adjust its tone and offer solutions more empathetically. That could be a strong market differentiator. Jungkook nodded, but make sure it tested against bias. You typed quickly, glancing occasionally at Jungkook. He was in full CEO mode, concise, precise. Meanwhile, your brain had drifted. Not completely, you were still listening, but as Namjoon went into a deep dive about API integrations, you found yourself staring at Jungkook's profile, the way his jaw tensed slightly when thinking, the way his fingers drummed lightly against the table as he processed information. And for some reason, maybe lack of sleep, maybe the 2 cups of coffee you had downed earlier, maybe just your own stupidity, a random thought popped into your head. He would make a terrifying husband, the kind who tells you you are loading the dishwasher wrong but then secretly reloads it himself. The thought made you bite back a smile. Then Jungkook turned his head toward you, clearly waiting for you to pull up the latest shipment timeline data. Miss Wyan. You stood slightly, leaning toward him with your laptop, and before your filter could save you, your mouth, absolute traitor, said, "Got it, hubby." The room went silent. You froze. Jungkook looked at you like he heard something unbelievable. Namjoon's pen stopped mid-scribble. Yoongi's head slowly lifted from his laptop. The two marketing managers exchanged wide-eyed glances like they had just witnessed a celebrity scandal. Even the air conditioner sounded louder. You blinked rapidly, heat rushing to your cheeks. Sir, I meant sir. Slip of the tongue, my apologies. Jungkook's dark eyes locked on yours. He didn't react dramatically, didn't even frown, just tilted his head slightly, voice low enough to carry a hint of something unreadable. Keep your tongue in control. He muttered quietly between teeth so that only you could hear. You pressed your lips in embarrassment. Noted. You sat back down quickly, wishing you could crawl under the conference table. Everyone resumed talking, pretending nothing had happened. But you knew. Oh, you knew. The air felt heavier, charged with suppressed laughter and unspoken questions. The rest of the meeting went on updates about beta testing, finalizing the UX design, deadlines for the investor demo, but your brain was half focused, replaying that moment over and over like a cursed TikTok loop. When the meeting finally ended, you made a beeline for the door, hoping to disappear into your office before anyone. Too late. The moment you stepped into the hallway, you caught snippets. Did you hear that? She called him hubby. They must be secretly dating. No, they are already married. He has to be. No one calls the CEO that unless you spun around. It was a mistake. I was distracted. They just smiled like you had confirmed everything. By the time you reached your desk, Jimin was leaning casually against it. Mrs. John, how's married life? Jimin, I will end you. You hissed, making him grin. Relax, I'm just saying. The entire 12th floor thinks you two have been married for months. Honestly, I'm impressed you kept it quiet for this long. There's nothing to keep quiet. Hmm? He said, clearly not believing you. It's just that hubby slipped, but so naturally. You groaned and dropped your head into your hands. From your peripheral vision, you caught movement. Jungkook stepping out of his office, his gaze swept briefly over the floor, and you could swear he caught Jimin mouthing hubby in your direction. Instead of shutting it down, Jungkook simply said, Secretary, my office now. Jimin looked at you mischievously. Hubby is calling. Go. Giving him a death glare, you followed him in, ready to apologize again. You closed the door behind you, holding your notepad like a shield. Yes, sir. His pen didn't stop moving across the paper. Do you have something to tell me? About? You asked, trying to keep your voice steady. That was when he finally looked up. His stare was sharp enough to cut glass. Why half the office is apparently convinced you and I have a personal relationship? You swallowed hard. I'm sorry, I really didn't realize. Of course you didn't, otherwise you wouldn't have called me hubby. His tone was flat, but there was the faintest twitch at the corner of his mouth, like he was trying not to smirk. It was an accident, you blurted, waving your hands. I was thinking about something else and thinking about your husband? He asked, leaning back in his chair. You wanted to disappear into the carpet. Sir, I'm not even married. There was a pause. He tapped his pen against the desk. Then why would you? He stopped himself, his gaze suddenly unreadable again. Never mind. I expect you to put an end to the rumors. I run a company, not a reality show. Of course, sir, you said quickly. You tried. You really did. The moment you stepped out of his office, you told people it was a slip of the tongue. I meant to say happy, like happy with the progress. No one believed you. They used to think why you were the only one who can tease the CEO. How can he let an employee come to his personal space when he's so reserved? But now they thought the reason was because you were his wife all along. By lunch, someone had already photoshopped wedding rings onto a picture of you and Jungkook at last year's company party. By 3 p.m., IT had banned the meme from the company's server. By 4 p.m., a courier arrived with a package labeled to Mrs. John containing a novelty mug that said World's Best Wife. At 5 p.m., the HR manager asked you into her office and, with a completely straight face, asked if you would like to add spouse of the CEO to your emergency contact list. You were halfway through saying no when your phone buzzed a text from Jungkook. You were terrible at damage control. You stared at the screen, heat rushing to your cheeks, then another message came. Dinner, my treat. We need to talk about this before it gets worse. The worst part, you couldn't tell if this was a punishment or the beginning of something much, much more dangerous. You stood outside the restaurant, staring up at the gold lettered sign like it was a portal to your doom. It wasn't just any restaurant. This was the Argentum, the most expensive fine dining place in the city. It was the kind of place where the wine list has no prices because if you had to ask, you didn't belong. You checked your reflection in the glass door twice. Your hair was fine, your outfit was fine, your pulse, however, was not fine. The moment you walked in, a sharply dressed hostess approached with a knowing smile. Good evening, Mrs. John. Right this way. You blinked. I'm not. She was already leading you through the room, past elegant couples sipping champagne. Heads turned, you felt every curious stare. Jungkook was already seated at a corner table, black shirt, sleeves rolled up, looking like he had just stepped out of a magazine spread titled Dangerously Handsome CEOs. He glanced up from the wine menu and, oh, wonderful, the faintest smirk appeared. Mrs. John, he said smoothly, standing just enough to pull out your chair. Your eyes widened and your face turned red. Don't start, you hissed as you sat down. I didn't, he replied, handing you the wine list. You did. Once the waiter left, you leaned in. We need to end this rumor before it gets any worse. He swirled his wine casually. Why? You almost choked. Why? Because the entire office thinks I'm your wife. Hmm. He took a slow sip. Does it interfere with your work? Are you testing me so later you can punish me for it? Do you know how many people called me Mrs. John today? Even the interns are giggling when I walk by. I got a mug in the mail. His lips twitched again, like he was enjoying this far too much. That's terrible. You don't sound bothered by it. Maybe I'm not, he said simply, leaning back in his chair. Rumors can be useful. You narrowed your eyes. Useful for what? Before he could answer, a familiar voice interrupted. Mr. Han, one of the company's major investors, was strolling toward the table. Well, I didn't know the two of you were married. You opened your mouth to correct him, but Jungkook spoke first. Yes, he said smoothly, placing a hand over yours on the table. We were trying to keep it quiet, but I suppose news travels fast. You froze. Mr. Hanbeam, I always said the company needed more stability, and nothing says stability like a CEO with a strong partner by his side. Jungkook smiled politely. Exactly. When Mr. Han finally left, you yanked your hand away. What the hell was that? Damage control. Jungkook said, completely unbothered. That's not damage control, that's adding gasoline to the fire. There's a charity gala next Friday. You'll attend with me. As your secretary? His lips twitched. As my date. He leaned back in his chair, gaze calm but unreadable. Let's give them something to talk about. Your stomach flipped. You couldn't believe this cold perfectionista was interested in you all along. So you weren't the only one obsessed. Why do you want them to believe this? It's ridiculous. He kept his eyes on you. Is it ridiculous? Yes, I don't think so. Your heart skipped. What? He glanced at you briefly, eyes softer than you had ever seen them. If they believe you're mine, maybe you'll start believing it too. Later, he drove you home. The rest of the ride was silent, but it wasn't the awkward kind. Maybe, just maybe, chaos wasn't such a bad thing after all.